But yeah, going back to the subject of gaming journalists and content creators. Um, I need to hear the truth from a person who works in the content creation space. Why do you think the relationship between gaming journalists and or well more well said games media and gaming content creators is so strained? Why do you think that is?
Um, I think one part of it, and this is what probably originally pushed me towards having a baseline animosity, was that the larger media publications, they don't necessarily, a lot of people think they get paid for coverage, like they get a check and it says, you're going to give us a 7 out of 10. That's not how it works at all. But people think that. But what they do get is they get access that content creators just don't get. Now that's changing over time. It is like, especially if you get big enough, then certain publishers will work with you or send you keys or review access or interview opportunities, whatever it is. But for the most part, especially on the smaller side, and especially 3, 4, 5 years ago, that didn't exist. So we were kind of watching a group of people that a lot of times it seems like they hate us. A lot of times it seems like they'll go out of their way to like shit on YouTubers or even just individual video game communities, the hardcore gaming scene. Like they'll go out of their way to attack certain subsets of their audience, and they have this access where there's, in my opinion, obviously a quid pro quo with what they'll do to maintain that access. And just kind of watching all of that happen while I was on the other end, like looking at it from the outside, I don't know. It's just hard. It kind of made me think that there's a lot of people in the space that are undeserving of being in the space. Like genuinely, when you have people getting verified on Twitter, getting sent like they've never done hardware reviews in their life, but getting sent free PS5s and Xbox Series X's because they were like, "Hey, Sony, you're probably racist and you don't have enough people of color reviewing these," and then that's like the voices that are amplified and projected by larger publications. It's like, well, that's not going to help me know whether or not I like ray tracing. That's not going to help me know whether or not the hardware is compatible, like is superior to the competition, or how it runs certain games. Like, what do you mean? Like, you just wanted free stuff, and now you have free stuff, and now everybody else in the space that has a large voice is supporting you. Why? So that kind of breeds a sense of animosity because there's this idea that some people in the gaming media space don't deserve to be there.
Right. Um, okay. Is there any other reason why you think the relationship between games media and content creators is strained?
Well, there's also a ping pong effect, right? Like I'm guilty of this 100%. Like something will get written that says, "Oh, gamers are toxic and horrible," and then I'll do something. Like creators will make stuff that responds to that and says, "No, you're toxic and horrible," and then it goes back and forth, ping pong, response to a response, et cetera, et cetera. And it happens with new issues like every week, every month. So there's this kind of long entrenched back and forth where like Last of Us 2 is a perfect example. A lot of people in gaming media were like, nope, it's amazing, it's amazing, it's a 10 out of 10. Anybody who doesn't think that is a bigot. And then a lot of people in the content creation scene were like, no, we actually really like the original. We like Joel. We like the storylines that we knew. We don't want to see him, get his teeth kicked in, and we don't want to see all of our beloved characters laid bare as if they're just horrible people. Which I get it. That was the artistic vision. They have every right to do it. But that divide is very, very well defined. So on one side, it's usually like a kind of a hive mind. You said it earlier, a hive mind opinion in one sense, and it's kind of a different set of opinions on the other side, and then it just spirals from there.
Okay. So now I want to ask something, but not to upper echelon. I want to ask something to the journalists, the people that have been working in Bago Games for a while. Why do you think? Why do you guys think that the games media and content creators are so, strained? The relationship between them is so strained. Why do you personally think so?
I'm a little unsure personally, because I don't have much experience yet. And from what I've seen, there seems to be like a bit better relationship now, because I've seen people like Young Ye quoting articles and stuff and using it as a source, and that seems to be a healthier relationship. I haven't seen much animosity, so I'm probably not in that sphere yet.
Okay, probably not. How about you, Art Connoisseur? What do you think?
The strain between content creators and journalists, huh? Well, I've seen a lot of. I see, yeah, like Young, yeah, he does quote articles from Kotaku and that. So there is that. That is good. I'm glad that we are seeing content creators work with game journalists like Jason Schreider. I think he's a really good journalist. He's one that exposed the Anthem thing, if I'm correct. Sure, I believe so.
Yeah, he did the long form because he had sources at BioWare. He gets inside companies and comes out with information that basically nobody else can come out with. So it's very valuable.
Yeah.
I think when those type of relationships happen, that really generates a bigger voice for companies to hear. But when they're constantly at odds with each other, like with the quartering and other articles, and like Echelon here with who was it again that did the hit piece?
Seen it.
Okay, yeah, seen it. It's like a lot of this your word versus my word. And these people, the viewers, don't know who to exactly trust.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it just comes down to a matter of just trusting who should people trust.
Yeah, and there is a different, like, there is some valuable stuff that comes out of like most publications. I mean, certain ones, no, we have stuff like the Mary Sue, which I don't think publishes anything of value, but like most publications come out with valuable stuff. They either have access to someone that most other people don't. They get granted an interview, or they find a certain bit of information. So there is valuable stuff in like quoting that, understanding that, citing sources, and then kind of a mutually beneficial relationship with the flow of information is really, really good, and it does happen. I think a lot of it comes down to like personality disagreements, or like even audience demographic disagreements. Like, for instance, if I don't like a game, and then like most of the people at Kotaku like a game, and they really like a game, and I say the game is bad, and they say the game is good, and then they say the game is good and anyone who thinks the game is bad is horrible, and I say, well, that's not cool because I'm not horrible and I genuinely don't think the game is good, then you get in this thing where they're at odds. And then audiences always kind of pick up on that and then divide even further. Because if you like someone and a media publication says that person is de facto awful because of some video game that they have an opinion on, that's when you'll be like, yeah, well, fuck gaming media, they're horrible and all the journalists are bad, right? Obviously, not all the journalists are bad, but that's just, it exacerbates the situation.
Especially because I am one of the people who gets the fucking bad end of the stick in that regard. Especially because, I have always mentioned this, but people often try to like spin it to fucking me trying to earn sympathy points or whatever the fuck, but I really don't give a shit. Some people have made fun of my profession. A lot of my friends and peers tend to like make fun of me whenever I talk about my job, because like I always tend to say, gaming journalism is nowadays a thankless job, especially because the bigger journalists essentially just pretend that you don't exist, and the fucking content creators essentially make sure to tell everybody how much you suck because you are in the same space as them.
Well, because people have this avatar in their head of like what a games journalist is, and that avatar is usually based on like kind of the most prominent vocalized opinions from Kotaku, Polygon, The Verge, IGN, PC Gamer, like stuff like that. Like the big, a lot of it isn't really aimed, and shouldn't be aimed, in my opinion, at the independent outlets or like the independent writers that, write here and there a couple things once in a while. A lot of the stuff that really, I think, is designed intentionally to be rage bait comes from staff writers at major media publications. Primarily like the big three, the big four, you know what I'm talking about, Kotaku, Polygon, The Verge, etc. And so this avatar in their mind is that's what they see kind of propagated on Twitter, especially, or like pushed through social media. They see responses to that content from content creators, and then they get it entrenched in their mind that is gaming journalism. Now, it's a section of it for sure. It's a pretty big section of it, but it's not all of it. Far from it. There's plenty of people that are writing for smaller independent outlets or doing their own work on the side, or even have their own blog. And I would consider them to be a gaming journalist, right? And they write for themselves. And they don't necessarily have a big microphone at IGN, but they're doing good work. So yeah, it is good to break down that kind of one size fits all shoe that we're putting on gaming media from my side. from the content creator side, break that down and say, yeah, it's not one size fits all. It's not the same shoe for every foot. Like, it's different. There are different outlets, different people, different stories that come out, different goals, all of it. So it is good to kind of break that apart a little bit.